State Rep Tom Demmer taking some time out of his morning. Tom, good morning to you.
Good morning, guys.
How's everything going this morning?
Oh, not bad. We're back home from Springfield, and we actually got something done yesterday.
I got to ask you a quick question before we get into what was accomplished here. How do you feel? I mean, it came as a shock to a lot of us, but when it was revealed to us by Mike Madigan that Bruce Rauner didn't really win the governorship.
That was quite a way to rewrite history.
It was Pat Quinn who lost it. Bruce Rauner didn't win anything here.
That's right. I think if you followed the news during the last election cycle and saw the outcome on Election Day, you'd be hard-pressed to find any stretch of truth in saying that Bruce Rauner did not win that election.
Now, does that comment, though, I mean, Mike Madigan, interview with the Springfield TV station, said he believed Bruce Rauner didn't really win the election, that it was Pat Quinn who lost it. Heck, he put an advisory referendum on the ballot just to help out Pat Quinn, and stupid voters still wouldn't cast their ballots for the incumbent governor. But does that mindset help explain a little bit of why we are at loggerheads in Springfield if Mike Madigan thinks Bruce Rauner's win was somewhat illegitimate?
I think it does, and maybe more so than saying that he believes the win was illegitimate. I think that might just be a statement for the press. But I think it does show that he feels a personal challenge to his power. So I think you see this power struggle of a guy, Speaker Madigan, who's been in office for 40-some years and been Speaker for 30 years, seeing somebody new come into town and probably doesn't like the threat that brings to the status quo.
And the idea that, if this guy who is, giving him a hard time has his way, well, you aren't going to see another guy sitting in there for 40 years.
That's true. That's true. I think there's a lot of focus coming in there now about how long certain people have been in power and the kinds of things that arise when one person amasses that kind of power over the course of a couple decades.
State Rep Tom Demmer with us. It's Riley and Scott on WROK. Let's talk about what did get done yesterday, a vote in the House on some federal dollars to be freed to spend. What exactly is included in that, $5.2 billion or so? And what was the drama with the Democrat amendment trying to spend even more state dollars?
Yeah, so this is an interesting aspect of the budget. These are dollars that come from the federal government, but because of state law requiring appropriations before money can be spent, the state legislature still has to give approval to agencies to spend these federal dollars. So what we're looking at here is, something that doesn't affect the general revenue fund for the state. It's not state taxpayer dollars. This is money that gets sent to Washington and comes back to us in certain programs. So, for example, things like senior meals, Meals on Wheels, some meals for seniors who can't afford their own, some child protection, child welfare work at DCFS, in DCEO, the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, some workforce training types of things. And then a big one that actually was added in an amendment yesterday because it had been overlooked were quite a bit of funding for the Illinois Emergency Management Agency. So stuff that comes to us through FEMA, disaster assistance, terrorism preparedness, some issues like that. So things that federal dollars pay for but have to be appropriated by the state. So this was something that's never been seen as a very controversial part of the budget. Really, it's just pass-through money that agencies receive from the federal government. So that was the way it looked when this saga kind of started. In the Senate, a bill was passed last week unanimously. All Republicans, all Democrats agreed. The governor indicated he'd sign it. He said, let's find something we can agree on. Here's a great example of something we can't agree on. Let's pass this bill for federal funding. So we thought that it was going to come over to the House and get the same kind of fate. Well, the night before the vote, Speaker Madigan introduced a bill or an amendment to this bill that would add $580 million of state spending to this bill that had been otherwise with no opposition. So, of course, we took issue at that. There are a number of problems with spending this general revenue fund money when we don't have the rest of the budget in place. There were there's no information about how much money we're going to bring in, much less how much we should be spending. So we really put up quite a bit of opposition to this last-minute addition of hundreds of millions of dollars in state spending. The Speaker is still forced to vote on that yesterday, I think for political reasons, forced to vote on that amendment. It failed. We held together a bipartisan coalition. We said, no, what we need to do is pass this federal funding to get money into places like the Emergency Management Agency And luckily, we were able to pass that yesterday, again, unanimously. So we ended up with a situation in which there was unanimous State House agreement, and the governor is going to sign the bill, but in characteristic Springfield style, not without first a political flourish by the Speaker.
What do you think is end game? What's the Speaker's end game in pulling a stunt like that?
Well, we've seen quite a few votes this year in the House that they're votes that are designed to fail. They're for programs that or bills that never get called for a final vote. Maybe we'll take a vote on an amendment or a vote in committee, never get called for a final vote. Or we've even had votes where a Democratic sponsor stood up and said, I think this is a bad bill, don't vote for this bill. They vote against their own bill, and they do so just for political purposes. They want to try to force a vote on things. Truthfully, so they can send political mailers during the upcoming election season saying, your representative voted this way on that or didn't vote for you on this. Purely political votes that really had no chance of passage.
State Rep Tom Demmer with us from the 90th District here in Illinois. It's Riley and Scott on WROK. Also, action yesterday by the governor to sign a police reform bill into law. One of the big things is laying out regulations and rules if police departments wish to use body cameras. Now, this does not mandate the use of body cameras for police departments, but it does say if you're going to, here are some things you need to follow. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's true. And, I think the interesting context to look at with this is that over the past year or so, there's been quite a bit of scrutiny across states and in the media about laws regulating certain things for police departments. This year, at the beginning of the year, there were something like 28, 29 different bills that were introduced that addressed some aspect of regulating the police departments or providing some kind of state law about that. So it was obviously a very hot topic in the legislature this year. I thought this bill was a great example of a way where they said, look, instead of passing these 28 piecemeal bills that actually some of them might contradict one another, let's sit down, get members of the House, members of the Senate, Republicans and Democrats both, and come up with some kind of agreement where we can work with the police department, state police, things like that. And we ended up passing what I thought was a pretty fair compromise bill.
It's nice that that kind of thought can go into it without a thought on, okay, well, politically speaking, it's better for us to pass through this piecemeal thing, whereas, cooler heads seemingly prevailed and went with something where everyone can work together.
Yeah, that's true. And, we had a couple of examples of that this year. Another example I'd point to is a lot of work about intervening in the heroin crisis in Illinois. So, again, that was a hot topic. There were a number of bills introduced. But, again, they said, let's get together, bipartisan support, both chambers, and come up with a bill that can pass. So I think, both of those, and we pointed to those during this whole budget negotiation process by saying, look, this is obviously the way that we accomplish good, meaningful legislation that, everybody can live with. And we need to take that kind of template and apply it to the budget process. Unfortunately, we see these great bills pass through, and then it kind of falls on deaf ears when it comes to the budget negotiation.
State Rep Tom Demmer with us from the 90th District. It's Riley and Scott on WROK. For a long time, Mike Madigan didn't want to talk about, didn't want to say much about the raises for lawmakers. Finally, bowing to some pressure, did vote to rescind those raises. Now, if I heard State Rep Ron Sandak correctly yesterday, that bill, though it has been approved by the House and the Senate, has not yet been sent to the governor for his signature. What's happening there?
Yeah, that was a little peculiar. So that bill passed both chambers. It's up to the sponsor of the bill to send that bill to the governor. The Speaker was the sponsor of the bill. And so yesterday, Representative Sandak made an inquiry on the House floor asking why that bill hadn't been sent to the governor yet and when it would be. And it took a couple of minutes of some people shuffling around and looking something up on a computer, and they ended up saying, oh, well, I guess it'll be sent this week. So I'm not sure what the delay was there. I think, we need to get that bill sent to the governor right away so he can sign it, and the comptroller can make the appropriate adjustments. I don't know where the delay came from there. It seemed to catch them off guard a little bit.
Now, if there is a delay, does that mean one extra paycheck with the extra money inside?
Sure, a little prorate?
Well, if it does, they'll prorate checks in the year. It's based on a yearly sum. So, I'm not sure there's really an advantage to waiting.
Which would be weird because Mike Madigan is a guy who looks for any advantage and every advantage he can get. We're so curious. There has to be some reason why he hasn't sent this bill. What is it?
There probably is, and I'm not. Maybe he held that card to play later, and then just that opportunity didn't come.
Oh, you two were just so cynical, thinking the speaker's always up to something like that.
I know. He says he's never about the politics.
Right, and you refuse to take him at his word.
I know.
All right. State Rep Tom Demmer, as always, man, thanks for taking time out of your morning for us.
You bet. Great talking with you.